going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good day so far. We have a very, very special guest and a really top tier accomplished musician. He's won so many awards, including 6 Grammys. Welcome, the very, very talented Daniel Ho.
Aloha, everyone. Thank you for having me on your show, Andrew.
Man, thanks for donating. I mean, you're such a busy guy and you always got something going on. But yeah, thanks for donating your time to come and chat, man.
Well, not this year, I don't.
Yeah, last time I saw you, I think was at NAM, and you were playing with Gabriella, Rodrigo Gabriella at the booth, I think.
Yeah, that was amazing. I just met her at NAM, and it was with Yamaha. Rodrigo and Gabriela, they're Yamaha artists,
Yeah.
and I've been with Yamaha guitars for, gosh, maybe 15, 17 years now.
Wow.
And they said, hey, we're gonna, do a show at NAM. Would you like to play with Gabriela? It's like, wow, cool, okay. And she's the sweetest person, just the nicest, most sincere person you'd ever meet. And um, yeah, so we, got to meet and play together for the weekend, and I'm gonna do a little bit of recording and see what we come up with ukulele and percussion guitar and stuff. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
You've got to play and sit in with some really talented musicians. What were some of your favorite memories with some of these
Well,
top tier guys?
well, at that show, I got to play with Nathan East for the first time,
Oh, okay.
and Nathan East, your dad probably knows, but he's like one of the most recorded bass players, and I was a fan of his since high school. I mean, he was on everybody's recording, and he still is, and also the nicest guy. But he's a Yamaha bassist. He's always been, and so through Yamaha, get a chance to meet and play with these wonderful musicians. But yeah, there's all kinds of Pepe Romero,
Oh
senior.
yeah, how was that playing with him? Like that's really cool. Like, just be able to play with Pepe Senior. And yeah, you guys worked on a few tunes, on a record too, right?
Yeah, well, I studied classical guitar when I was 9 years old for 5 years when growing up in Honolulu at Easy Music Center. Yeah, took guitar lessons there. Uh, and so I knew and had been a fan of Pepe Romero since, I was 10, 11 years old. Of course, I know the Romero family name and his dad and the quartet. And I don't know how many years ago, maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, I met Pepe Sr. through his son, Pepe Romero Jr., because we were working on ukulele designs together, the tiny tenor, and went down to his house in Del Mar,
Mm.
California. And Pepe Sr. was home, and Pepe Jr. introduced us, and I was speechless. I really didn't even, I just awestruck. His living room is the room where his family, his dad and the quartet, um, rehearsed since the 70s. And so it's a legendary place, and it's got a big grand piano
What
and
a
all the
history. Wow.
beautiful floors, and then Pepe Senior is, you would, I just, I didn't know what to imagine, but he's a very encouraging, positive person, and he loves to teach. He loves to share. So, we filmed the song Romanza together, and then from that we did a whole album called Aloha España,
Ah,
where he did his
right.
classic tunes like Leyenda and Recuerdos and Canarios, songs that I played when I was a kid, and I composed ukulele parts for it, and we did a classical guitar and duet album, and then we performed it, and every minute I spent with him, I learned so much about preparation, about what happens behind the scenes, how he gets ready, what he eats, have a banana for potassium and cramps or whatever,
Hmm.
and how he prepared to do music at the highest level. And it is just really a enlightening experience, eye opening to work with him. We have another show coming up next year, hopefully, if all goes well. But Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I feel very lucky.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know what you mean. Like I met Pepe Senior once because I went to go check out some of Pepe's ukuleles. I think it was actually your ukulele that was in the shop at the time. It was at that maple with the I think it was cedar top.
Cedar top with the Italian maple back and sides.
Yeah, I was like, wow, this thing is an animal, and it was loud, and it's like so paper thin too. I don't know how
Yeah.
Pepe does
If
it.
if you did you hold it up to the light? Because if you look through the sound hole, you can see through the wood.
Yeah, yeah, he told us to shut up.
It's like a reddish. The Italian maple has a reddish color when the light shines through it. It's amazing. That's an amazing instrument.
It was, and it was. I think it was your old ukulele or something. I know that it was yours for sure.
Well, yeah, I had two. I had two of his tenors. I have a Brazilian rosewood spruce top,
Wow.
which I have recorded with for 10 years. Every recording, it's my instrument. I keep at home, leave it in the case. Take it
I
out,
see.
set up the mics, put it away. you know,
Is that a full body or is that based on the tiny tenor?
it's a full body tenor, and it is the first instrument that well, actually, he actually gave me that instrument when we met, the day we met about 10 years ago. A mutual friend of ours, Kevin Kinnear, wanted us to meet. It took about 2 months for us to actually get together. He came over and he brought four tenor ukuleles, and his tenor ukuleles are miniature classical guitars, 12 frets to the body. He just takes, his $14,000 classical guitars and he scales them down and he builds them, tunes every board. He shaves the neck by hand, no CNC machines. I mean, he carves it from a block of wood. Like, I mean, it's really handmade masterpieces. And he brought four over. He had Koa, he had, I forget all the different kinds of woods, but one of them was Brazilian rosewood spruce top. And I just told him when I met him, like, these are the four best ukuleles I've ever heard, but, it from my personal taste. I
Yeah,
say
yeah.
because I'm, I'm looking for a classical guitar sound. I play pretty much only finger style unless I'm accompanying myself singing or something.
Mm-mm.
And so I'm looking for this big round tone. I want to be able to play a rest stroke fortissimo on every fret and not get any buzzing. And intonation has to be in tune every fret, every string. And he had all these things because that was his standard in building for Paco de Lucio or Pepe Senior or his clientele. It's like, oh, this is truly amazing. I can do so much with these instruments, and it opened a whole new way of composing for me because then I'm not limited to, oh, I gotta kind of avoid that string because it sounds kind of dead over there, or
Mm.
that one's out of tune, it goes sharp. My first string on the 10th fret, I'd and stay away from that, and so it really affects everything I did in music because hey, no, I can play this chord, I can play this voicing, I can do this, and the tone and everything, and so it became a really neat collaboration, which led to the tiny tenor.
Yeah.
Kind of taking a wild idea, and at that time, Pepe would not even build a cutaway. He would not
Oh,
even
really?
build. It's like no, any client asks for a cutaway, it's like they can go somewhere else. I build for sound. I'm not gonna, I build in a traditional way, and he was kind of happy and very successful doing it that way. But I had this idea to take every aspect of the ukulele and kind of expand on it. Like, its portability,
Mm.
that concert size, the concert's the most, popular size around the world. And the tenor sound for the professionals, the tenor scale, people like a bigger sound, and put that in a concert size package and, take away the waste, bigger sound. And we came up with this design, and then one thing led to another. He couldn't keep up with orders, and he started Romero Creations.
Oh, okay.
That's how that started about 8 years ago now,
Mm.
because of the tiny tenor. And
That's pretty cool. Out of all the woods with the tiny tenor, what would you say your favorite combination is?
I
Because
like mango. I like mango.
there's a
For
spalted
two
mango.
spalted mango.
Mm-mm.
So my tiny tenor that I perform and tour with is a spalted mango, and it's a warmer wood and it's a little more balanced. Uh, Romero Creations offers three. uh, mahogany, koa, and spouted mango.
Mm.
And we kind of decided those are the three kinds of woods that cover the bases. If you want something, more Hawaiian and you want indigenous Hawaiian wood, you get Hawaiian koa. Um, Mahogany is a ubiquitous tone wood, and all the guitars and so many instruments are built with mahogany. It's a great tone wood. It sounds very much like koa, and it looks very much like koa. A lot of
Yeah.
times, mahogany is very beautiful. I can't always tell the difference. um, but it has a great sound. It sounds pretty much like koa. It's
Yeah.
very similar. And spouted mango is entirely different, and I love it because each instrument is unique,
Mm.
visually unique. Like if you get a spouted mango, you're not gonna confuse it for someone else's spouted mango because no two look alike. So on stage, it can be striking, and people always ask like, "What kind of wood is that?" or "What is that?" So visually, it's a lot of fun and it's a great conversation piece. But sonically, it has a little warmer sound, and I do the audio engineering for our projects, and I'm always looking for a very balanced tone. So low,
Mm.
mids, and highs, like all the frequencies I want to be even across the board. And not like have a big bump in mid range, which is
Yeah.
kind of typical of ukulele sound because it's a smaller body. You get a lot of emphasis, 800 to 1200 hertz or so, and mahogany kind of undoes that. And so people perceive mahogany as being possibly quieter sounding,
Yeah.
but actually, the truth is the same amount of energy comes from the vibration of the string. Same model, same body shape, the same energy, 17-inch scale and whatever on a tenor. But the way the wood receives the energy and spreads it out over the frequencies, mango does it really nicely. And so it has a little more bass, a little more high, little not so much mid range,
Yeah.
and it sort of undoes the natural acoustics of a instrument in the cubic volume of ukulele, which is that size.
Mm.
So that's what I like about mango.
Yeah, yeah. I actually just got a new mango uke, I think a couple weeks ago, but I literally haven't been putting it down. And it's so different from coal, it's so different from like like spruce. But yeah, I know what you mean with with that warmth, and I don't know. I've been really enjoying the mango, and it's a wood that I've never really played before, but I've been having the time of my life just sitting outside, coming up with ideas. So yeah, I agree with you. Mango is very unique, and come
Sweet.
on, I mean, you're designed with the just it just looks cool and it sounds cool. I mean that, and that's like I think that's really important, and the playability too. I think is another factor that makes it popular.
Yes, yes, it's comfortable to play. And well, I think where mahogany and koa will shine more is if you're playing acoustically and just jamming and you want to be heard in an ukulele group. That mid-range peak of 812 dB,
Hmm.
that mid-range peak will project more, that frequency. That's actually like telephone frequencies, how you 500 to 3000 hertz. The mid-range is what our ears are used to hearing as loudness.
Hmm.
So, a mahogany or koa is going to project a lot more in those kinds of things. But if, you're recording, you got mics close to your instrument or you plug it in or whatever, mango's good for other kinds of things. So I kind of I have a mango one. I have a koa and mahogany, and just kind of
Nice.
fool around with different things. But
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like depends what the mood is. If you're like in a koa mood, mango mood, or like spruce if you want that Brazilian rosewood and spruce sound. Yeah, it's just like I guess it depends on your mood, but it's good to have different instruments because they help with different ideas
Hmm.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just really curious because as even just starting off as a young musician, you're just very just talented and you played almost everything. Like, can you just run me through that process real quick of just like being a young musician and just picking up these instruments right and left? Like, I think you started with the organ and ukulele, correct?
Yes, in second grade, I started with the organ. I took organ lessons in Kaimaki from Mrs. Corley, which is right above the bowling alley, Kaimaki Bowl,
Mm.
at the top of the hill, and Then I picked up ukulele and played a song for Anna. Just the first 8 bars. I didn't know the whole song for like 2 years. That's the only song I knew. That was like in second grade, third grade, and then fourth grade. I was 9 years old. I started classical guitar, and I just, I loved music. I didn't have discipline. I wish I had the discipline to practice more than 15 minutes a day.
I mean, that sounds hard to believe after hearing like the stuff you can do. Like,
No, no, I didn't have the discipline, but on the other side of the flip side of that is because I wasn't forced to do it. Like so many of the people I grew up with, um, they're forced to practice 2 4 hours a day, after school when everyone's outside playing in Hawaii. I mean, you want to go surfing in the afternoon,
yeah.
boogie boarding, whatever. You don't want to like sit stuck in a room in the hot, practicing piano or something. But so I loved it, and I always love it, and I still love it, and you know, I'm kind of playing catch up now because all
Mm.
the technique that I'm not excellent at, I have to work on more now. So I wish I had more discipline, not I took piano lessons from Ellen Masaki.
Mm.
I don't know if you know Ellen Masaki, but she has a very famous studio in Honolulu. And when I was growing up, she had all her students, winning international piano competitions. Like they're serious musicians, and they
Dang.
practice, 4 hours a day, and virtuosos, right? Kids playing Mozart concertos at like 9 years old, and they need the little foot pedal thing so they can
Dang.
actually reach the pedals on the piano. And so I did one competition in my senior year. I started very late with her, and I made it to the semifinals in the Young Keyboard Artists Association International Piano Competition. It was in the University of Michigan. So I graduated from St. Louis High School, and then I went to this competition, and I was horrible, just horrible. Like I played the most basic songs while everyone else was playing concertos. I was playing like minute waltz or something like that. It was kind of ridiculous, right? And I remember it was raining, and I walked in with tennis shoes, and from the rain, my shoes are wet. I did my, you know, the repertoire is like 5 pieces, like Bach, Prelude, and Fugue, and
Mm.
from a different, and then my tennis shoe was squeaking on the pedal the
Oh.
whole time. The whole time. It was so distracting. I was already not good to begin with. I was one of the worst ones there, but to have that, so Mrs. Masaki was not happy with me at all.
And you're talking like a quiet room, just one piano? Oh
And the
man.
judges, one piano and the judges, right?
Oh.
And so it was devastating and kind of sickening because you practice so hard, you know, trying to do a good job. From there, from Michigan, I flew to the Grove School of Music in Los Angeles to start music school. Dick Grove was the owner, and it's his school of music. And I was in the keyboard program because I
Okay.
wanted to be a session keyboard player, right? I had my meeting with him, interview, and I said, I want out of this program, I want to be in composing and arranging,
Mm.
which is his flagship program. He's a TV writer, film, right? And he said, why? I said, because I can't play. And he said, sit down on that piano and play me something. So this is right after, I'm all practiced up because, classical music, you got to be on it every day to maintain the repertoire. But I was all on it because I just came from the competition. I played the Bach Prelude and Fugue. And he goes, I don't understand. You play just fine. And I was like, no, you don't know what I just came from. He said these 13-year-old girls with perfect pitch playing concertos, it's like there's no way I can work in this industry. I was wrong. I was really wrong because in studio work, in the studios in Los Angeles, it's not about how fast you can play.
Mm.
It's about musicality, it's about groove, it's about coming up with the perfect part, the perfect voicing, fitting into the context of a band, um, having different sounds, and there's so much more than just how fast you can move your fingers. You got to have a pocket. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things to commercial music, film music, TV music, session playing. I didn't know that. I just realized that I had like pretty lame technique. And so he said, okay, well, if you want to be a writer, then you can go in the writing program. And I did, and studied composing, arranging, and film scoring. Best thing that ever happened to me, because what I did was I learned how the pieces fit together. I learned how a bass works with a kick drum. I learned Latin music, big band music, dramatic ballad, Broadway, and all these different styles. And we got to write in them and record the things he'd hired, the orchestras, and every week a different orchestra, different style. And then what that afforded me later on was the ability to not just do work for hire, but you generate royalties from intellectual property. So
Mm.
a song is intellectual property, and then if it gets used in a TV show or background music or whatever, then ASCAP or BMI at the time, now CSAC, and other companies collect royalties, and then you can earn a living, as a writer, and write for bands and lead bands and work in different ways, because you have a better understanding as of like, well, I don't have a lot of technique on any instrument, but I have a I think I have a pretty good understanding of what everybody's doing.
Mm.
So if your dad's playing this bass note in this particular register, I know I'm going to stay away from that, or I'm going to play these notes. And if you're playing this in the melody, then I know I'm going to create a contrary motion or oblique motion, or I'm going to do this inner line, or I'm going to, so it's, I don't have so much the physical technique as more understanding how pieces fit together. So things just kind of happen that way.
Yeah, I think that's really good to know though, because I know there's a lot of people who don't know that. I mean, people we know to a degree, but it seems like you have a fine understanding. Just I mean, even listening to your new record, playing through the changes, right, and just like that has a lot of musicality in there. So what is your music process like when it comes to arranging or even writing?
Well, that's a great question. So I'm gonna go back to Hawaii now, to my high
Okay.
school days. I went to St. Patrick's and then St. Louis High School, and my band director at St. Louis High School was Ray Wessinger. And I started in seventh grade at St. Louis. They just brought back seventh grade, and I was the first seventh grade class there in a long time. And it's across the street from my house. I met Ray Wessinger. I was in band, and he saw that I was very interested in music, and he said, "Do you want to be a?" This is seventh grade. "Do you want to be a musician?" I said, "Yeah, I want to be a musician." And he said, "You have to do everything I say." I said, "Okay, I'll do everything you say." So he's not like a regular, he actually came from Los Angeles, and he was a director of radio at NBC. He was assistant music director at MGM, Metro Goldwyn and Mayer, where they did all those
Oh,
big music productions. And he was an arranger. He played in like alto sax and Stan Kenton's band. I mean, he came with these stories that he would tell me, like, this is what we did. This is what you got to know. You have to learn how to play bass. You can't just play guitar, because if there's a job for a bass player and you don't know how to play, you're not going to work. And then he said, you have to learn how to arrange, because if you arrange and, compose, you can actually be the band leader instead of just the side man. You got to know how this stuff fits together. So he taught me big band arranging in high school, and Tia sang, with the Lancers, our St. Louis band. So that's how I
mm.
met Tia from Sacred Hearts. And then I also later on studied with Emmett Yoshioka. You know Emmett?
No.
Harry's Music Store, right?
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So his family, Yoshioka's, owned Harry's Music Store. So I worked there selling keyboards for a couple years in high school. And Emmett has a degree in composition from USC. So he said, you can study with me. And he actually taught me for free. He was
Oh,
just
really?
interested in sharing. And so now Ray Wessinger has a background in jazz, big band writing, that kind of commercial production writing. Emmett is a classically trained conductor and studied composition. So he was teaching me Bach 18th century harmony. And the voice leading in Bach, there's very specific rules, but it's the most beautiful way to put notes together. And you can hear how his counterpoint works and his choral writing, and he has techniques like contrary motion, like we talk oblique motion, and the no parallel fits. I mean, no parallel, just different rules that you can use or break, once you know them. But so I combined classical voice leading with jazz harmonies and classical melodic techniques and counterpoint techniques with jazz harmonies, and that is my way of doing sound. So then when I went to Dick Groves, he didn't have the classical background. He had really intricate jazz harmonic techniques. So I wrote a book about, my way of writing. It's called Colorful Sounds, and it details how I take complex chords and, following the overtone series, determine chord tones and extensions and color tones, and using uniform modules, which are shapes that your ear is familiar with. Like, take, for example, I'd call a uniform module like a major triad, like a C major triad. You play a C chord, you have three chord tones, 1, 3, and 5, C, E, and G.
Right.
But if I play in G chord, your ear, if you just heard a G chord, you know what that sounds like, right? Just
Yeah.
a major chord, it sounds like that. Well, if I play a G chord over a C chord, those notes in the G chord are the fifth, major, seventh, and ninth, right?
Yeah.
So if someone's playing your dad's playing C in the bass, I'm going to play a G triad up high, and I'm going to play the fifth, the major, seventh, and the ninth, and I'll leave out the third, and then I have this transparent chord that's a C major 9 chord, but I'm only playing a G triad. So if I were writing for trumpets and trombones, one hard thing about string sections is playing in tune. So what Dick Grove taught us was to make things in tune, you give consonant shapes, uniform modules or shapes in the different sections. So that if the trombones are just playing a C triad, they can play it in tune. If the trumpets are playing G triad, they're going to play it in tune. But if I gave the two trumpets the C and the B next to each other, that half step dissonance, and you put in the same section, they're going to have trouble intonating those two notes because the beats and the buzzing, from playing a half step.
Yeah.
But if I put the half step way over there in the trombones, and then I got the, back there, I got the consonant G chord. So there's a way to get musicians to blend sounds and tones and make them sound beautiful in the way that it's presented to them. And so one thing leads to another, and, talking about Pepe Jr., the same thing goes for woods. You asked about koa wood, mango wood, cedar, spruce, Italian maple. They all have tones. Body shapes have resonant frequencies. If you take away the waist of a travel guitar or an ukulele, you actually reduce the mid-range output considerably, right? It's the waist that's stiffening up the sides. It's like corrugated roofing. They bend it to stiffen it. They bend it, right? If you make that sheet of metal flat like this, it just warps. It doesn't keep its form. So by straightening sides, you add cubic volume to a body, but you also even out the sound because the resonant frequencies happen in the various cavities, your upper lower bout and your upper and lower bout, or a all lower bout single instrument like a lute. And you sing in the shower, there's one note in your shower that will sing back at you. That is the resonant frequency of your shower, right? You sing a note, oh, and it sings back at you at one point. Your every instrument, acoustic instrument, you have all your ukuleles on the wall, your guitar has that, but it has more than one because you have different, the irregular shapes, and you have this sound. So when you're engineering, I try to make everything as even as possible so I can get this sound, this full, loud, rich sound, and not depend on compressors and limiters to alter the sound and make it sound unnatural and change the shape of the ADSR, the attack, decay, sustain, and release. I do it by managing the frequency. So you can take the concept of a range, an instrument, starts with the instrument, Maple wood is a lot brighter than Brazilian rosewood back in sides. So if I want a smaller sound because I have a bass player there, I play maple. I want a brighter, snappier sound for flamenco, whatever. If I'm gonna play solo ukulele, I want Brazilian rosewood back in sides because I want to feel the whole 20 to 20,000 hertz, right? I want to get all the way down there. And then you go to the choosing all the parts, and the way you choose the notes, you can use the complexities and consonance and dissonance of jazz harmonies and combine it with classical counterpoint. And what you're doing is adding layers of depth and vertical layers as well. So these are layers of interest. You could just play a C chord, or you could play a C with a half step between the F sharp, the raised 11th, and the G with the ninth here in this particular voicing. And it doesn't appeal to everyone, but what it does is for a listener to hear a piece over and over, they can always discover. They
Mm.
can discover more layers of depth. Like, oh, I could listen to that again. Like, well, what happened in that spot? So that's harmonic depth. You can add melodic depth by taking a melody and then writing a counterpoint to it. So it answers it, but it's answering it in inversion. It's actually that theme upside down. So you add the melodic depth, you add the harmonic depth, you add the rhythmic depth, you can have a polyrhythm. Like I have a song that has 10 and a half, the melodies in one rhythm and the accompaniments in seven. And then you don't really know, or ever, without seeing the music, you wouldn't know how these two parts fit together, but they fit together and they were structured that way. So I like to try to, and nothing's actually physically difficult to play or fast or whatever. It's just, you can go so far into music itself in all these dimensions and sound. And then in the engineering part, you blend all the frequencies depending on what you would like to feature. And that's, how someone would develop their own unique sound. But it's a lifetime of study in any of these departments, just in the engineering alone. Like, took 20 years for me to figure out how to balance frequencies to get like that's the ukulele sound I want. And then now it's all saved in my computer. I take screenshots and I come back to it
Dang.
the same way every time. And then, 2 years later, I might come up with a better way of doing it, and it might just be moving zero point 0.2 decibels at this particular frequency. And then you get there, and then over the course of 8 years, your ukulele sound evolves into something that is really connected to the instrument, right? The original instrument, and same mics and same mic positioning and all that kind of stuff. So for me, like, it's just an endless process of discovery, how to just edge up, like for ukulele playing, for instance, like if I have a chord, I want to try to voice it a different way every time. So I don't use a chord book. I don't know
Yeah.
my chords. I just want to voice it with some open string or some campanella passage. Uh,
Mm.
you come up with a unique voicing. So it's fun. It keeps it exciting and interesting, and just keep searching. Yeah.
I feel like you just gave a little bit of a college course. Like I'm speechless. Like I'm still absorbing like what you just said, and it really is a treat for everyone listening. And it's like yeah, just even like some simple as was a layering a G triad over like a C, and going beyond just a wood because you like the sound. Like you really truly analyze every aspect, and that's just truly unreal. My
Yeah, and
gosh.
it's fun. It's something we can. I mean, it's study that happens on your own. You don't need
Yeah.
to go to class. You don't need to go to school for it. You just have to be inquisitive. And like, what? Why does that work? Why doesn't that work? Why do I feel that way when I hear this? Why do I don't? Why do I feel nothing when I hear that? And you know, and I don't know. I love it, but it isn't that I'm so. Think I'm more curious than talented. Like I'm really interested in finding out why. Because when you know the reason why doing something is good for your health, for example, eating a
Mm.
particular food or exercising or whatever, then you do it because you want to be healthier.
Yeah.
But if you don't know why to practice a certain way, then you don't do it. And so I really like learning and discovering, and yeah, it's
Man.
fun. So if you want to learn, the harmony thing, colorful sounds, it lays it all out. You can spend a few years working with the book, playing everything, writing it out in 12 keys,
I might
and it's
have to pick that
creative.
up. That's very fascinating.
It's not so technical, it's creative. You take these shapes that are familiar and simple to you for, and you combine them in such a way, using your understanding of chord tones and extensions and the overtone series, you can combine them and very quickly play that chord with two shapes, that chord with three shapes, and know exactly what you're doing and why. And that's only the harmony aspect of music. There's
Yeah.
all the other things too that we talked about.
Yeah, like she was saying about the woods, like oh, playing with bass, I'm gonna use this specific wood. That's like that's just, I don't know, that's just really just cool to hear and just
Yeah.
dang man, that is so yeah, you just again your musicality is just off the charts and your even your ukulele playing is just it's so clean. Like it's pretty unreal and it's just
Oh,
unbelievable. You play so many instruments. How'd you get so good at the ukulele?
I'm not. I'm not. I'm kind of a simple player, and because I think most of the work I do is kind of studio work,
Hmm.
the being clean and pristine and communicating the emotion with just a single note plucked just this way with a fingernail brushing the string like this is is my I guess that's my technique. That's what I appreciate about. So I don't have a lot of I just play kind of simple stuff and try to make it as the phrasings, the pushing and pulling of the rhythm.
Yeah.
Like I conduct through it to feel the retard and downbeat as if I were conducting an orchestra, and then I listen back to how I phrase it and play like, oh, I rushed that, I rushed the downbeat, like I do that again. Then I just keep doing it till I get this retard to feel like that, and then like okay, that's the spot right there.
I love
So
how you can be so effective without, like you said, like not super technical, but just effective because of what you're analyzing and processing up here. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's one thing that makes you unique is that just that approach. It's not all about technique, it's not all about speed, it's just like but the way you
yeah.
understand it and the way you orchestrate it is just I would say that's the next level.
I think it actually is a technique, but it's a totally different kind of technique.
Yeah.
Maybe it's less obvious than to see a drummer play a single stroke roll like oh my gosh, that drummer has so much technique.
Yeah.
And then you could hear Dennis Chambers or Steve Gadd or whatever, somebody, right? Lay down this pocket, it's just and then you can that's nice, but you might not say that's technique, but it actually is.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
just more subtle.
yeah, it's a different kind of a different dimension to music. So there's value in all of it because being having a lot of technique physically is important too. I think I'm not gonna ever acquire that, so I've given up on it.
I mean, even like when we saw you at I think it was that Nam breakfast thing,
Oh,
that event there. I think you played there the past maybe it was a year ago, but I just remember, yeah, like you're playing simple, but yet it's so complicated at the same time, and that was like the first time I was like, wow, like that's you're like one of the first ukulele players that I've heard that it's not just technical like technique flash. It's more like wow, just so much subtle things that you're doing. It's just like whoa, like it's hard to just process that, and that's what I thought that was pretty impressive.
thank you, for listening so carefully.
Oh no, yeah, I was like, dang,
Yeah.
that's so it
Yeah.
sounds simple, but it's not.
What I think too is, as an artist, as an artist, you're looking for your unique voice, your sound. So having your own instrument that produces a unique sound, your own look, having your own way of approaching music, you know, I think there's it kind of I mean, as an artist, you want to be unique.
Yeah,
And it's not a competition, but if you're off over there doing that thing and then that's your thing, then that's Andrew, as an artist, this is what he sounds like, this is what he does, he's his own thing. Like you don't even compare to anything else because, you know, it's so different, right?
yeah,
So deciding on what your musical approach is going to be. And it doesn't need to be complexity. It doesn't have to be depth or dimension in, areas we discussed. It can just be pure sincerity with three chords or two notes or just so, it could be any of those things that you decide this is me. This is how I want to represent myself.
Yeah, and that's a
But I
cool
think,
thing.
if you do the same thing that everyone's doing, it's
Yeah,
pretty hard to get above the noise because
definitely.
yeah, because
Yeah.
everybody just go on YouTube. And
Yeah. That's why like I always try to push myself to like learn new things or just like I'm always striving to evolve and just I don't know, like I don't want any record to sound like any of my previous ones. So I'm always exploring with new things and I just, started playing low G just because it's something that I haven't really done for all these years of playing, but it's a whole
Mhm.
new world, a whole bunch of new ideas. So I've been really enjoying just getting submerged in like just all this, just new things, which I think some people they're afraid to get out of the comfort zone. It's just like they're comfortable being there, but for me, I just like I always took joy in just like oh, it's hard, but I want to accomplish this understanding of certain things.
Right, right.
So it's
That's good. And
truly
your dad is just, a great musician and a lot of guidance, right?
yeah.
Like, okay, this is what you got to know. You got to have this pocket. You got to, you know, play the music, like, so you got a head start.
Yeah, yeah,
Was, he had that early on, well, from birth.
yeah. And the thing is with my dad, it's just like it's almost all by ear. Because
Uh-huh.
then like I'd ask him a music theory question. I was like, oh, you play like we're doing like a major seven chord there with that, and then he goes, oh, I don't know. And then he just
Uh,
goes, I play by ear, and he goes, I've been playing that my entire life. And I was just like, that's insane. Because he sits in with everybody. He's like Benny Chong. And I was like, how do you follow Uncle Benny and like
uh,
not really know what he's doing? He goes, oh, I just know. It's just funny. But
yeah.
yeah, just having my dad's intuition is just it's been really just awesome being able to perform and tour with him, especially like he hears certain things. I'm like, oh, okay, and that's a great idea, and so it's
Mhm.
really cool bouncing off ideas off of my dad. And like I said before, I mean, he talked about you, and then like, how old were you when you met my dad?
I didn't actually meet him. I was just a fan. Like, I used to see him play. My friend David Ho and David Ho is one of my mentors. He is 5 years older than me. He also went to St. Patrick's in St. Louis, and he is, he's audio engineer, but he has a movie post production business up here. Um, and he lived in Pololo Valley. I lived in Kamaki. Our parents were family friends. We moved to LA together to go to the Grove School of Music, and he taught me how to audio engineer, and now he's teaching me how to do video editing and you know making films and videos and stuff like that. But we used to watch it dance band, and we were just so blown away by he was pretty famous at the time for singing and playing reasons. And so we where did we see him last? I think probably the bandstand,
Mm,
Kapilani bandstand, where
right,
he's.
right.
I mean, he had a big band because Earth, Wind, and Fire was popular at the time, and he had a big band, but it's just a great sound, like really talented. It's pretty amazing to see. So I actually didn't meet him until I met you.
Oh, really, Adnam?
Yeah, yeah. Later on,
Oh,
like
okay,
Nam
okay.
Show and stuff like that. Like, oh my gosh, you're Jay. So cool. So
That's
I got to play with him a little bit, in the booth at Nam and stuff like
yeah,
that. But
yeah, yeah.
always been a fan from when I was a kid. So
That I mean, that's cool coming from you. I mean, just to like know that, he's go watch my dad and stuff like that. Yeah, I hear.
yeah.
I mean, I always hear people talk about reasons and just like music
Yeah,
in
I mean,
particular.
they did everything well, but that really showcased him.
Yeah, yeah.
He came up front and he just did that, and then it stood out. Like, people were pretty amazed by, as you can see.
Yeah, yeah. No, he might have to add that to his repertoire.
Yeah.
And
But talking about you know as an artist, as a style, stylistic like that. If you, I'm also have this philosophy about just learning everything myself and being able to do everything myself. Seeing, I call it seeing a note through from beginning to end, like the instrument, the wood, the design, and working with Pepe on that, and writing, choosing the notes, performing it or singing it, recording it, mixing, mastering, and then framing and packaging, photography, the graphic design, and now video. Um, because, well, it's expensive to hire a photographer, hire an audio engineer to do a whole album. That's one part of it. But the more aspects of the process that you understand and can control and do, you can really get it to sound exactly the way you want it to sound. You don't have to try and find a player that can, you know, play that kind of rhythm or have that kind of sound. You can just get the instrument and work
Mm.
at it. Um, but so I don't have agents, man. My wife does all the biz, takes care of everything. The downside of doing different kinds of things though is you don't have an identity. I mean, your identity is kind of all these different things, but to really excel in a particular area, you kind of have to do a number of albums in that genre. If I were going to be a classical musician, then I should play classical music. I should learn the repertoire. I should, take that path. If I were going to be a jazz musician, then I should learn songs in the fake book, or write only in that style.
Yeah.
So I think suffer, not suffer, but because artistically it's wonderful to do different kinds of things. But I went from a Mongolian album or
Oh,
going to Hulen beer and recording with chowers and dash pulluers and horsehead fiddles and Mongolian vocalists to Tak Matsumoto and rock and roll and then Pepe Romero like in 3 years.
dang. So like
And yeah, then completely different audiences.
I don't know, I was gonna ask like what would you like how would you define your style? Because like growing up, like going to high school, me and my cousin would always listen to your CD, like Slack Tides, Leah, like Slack
Oh.
Key. And then we see you do a lot of classical. Like, is that two of your main styles?
No, oh, I would say now, in the last 10 years, it's been world music. So I did a Chinese opera album called
Oh,
Embroidering Melodies. That was one of my last albums a couple years ago. Before that was a Mongolian one, and Playing Through Changes is kind of, it has classical on it, but it has some world music things too, and it's a mishmash of different kinds of music. But I I think I say world music in that what I'm trying to do uh, is take elements from different genres from around the world and combine them in such a way so that the end result is unique.
yeah.
And they're all rooted in tradition. And for example, this song Napana Elua, which I played at the Nam breakfast session, is based on an Indian polyrhythm of 10 and a half quarter notes over 7 dotted quarter notes. And the melody is in 10 and a half. And in a traditional Indian 10 and a half phrase, 4 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1.5 quarter notes. And then the accompaniment is in 7 dotted quarter notes equals 21 eighth notes, and 10 and a half times 2, 10 and a half quarter notes is 21 eighth notes. So they line up, and I do the melody on the top two strings of the ukulele and the accompaniment on the bottom two strings. But it's based on an indie polyrhythm, but I use a partito alto rhythm, which is a traditional samba Latin rhythm on a go-go bell. It goes bum bum gun 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 one gun gun gun
Mm.
gun 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 one gun gun gun
I,
gun.
I think I remember that tune actually at the breakfast.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so what I
yeah.
did is, and then I play an African udu in it in the song, and the core rhythm is a ipuheke in a rock rhythm like boom, ka, doom, 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 taka, doom. So ipuheke Hawaiian ukulele, ohana ukulele bass, and um, a go-go bell, Latin samba, Indian, African, and then you put it all together, and the end result is something that it just you can't really describe it by genre,
I
and
was
the
gonna say,
harmonies,
dang,
yeah, the
that.
harmonies are jazz.
Oh,
The
okay.
melody is actually composed in a classical melodic style, diatonic transpositions, and you can kind of One thing Emmett told me when I was a kid in high school studying from him was, well, the story goes, I brought this score of this piece that I love this. I wrote this string section in it and I brought it to Harry's music store. I put it on the counter. Harry's music store. I said, Emmett, I just wrote this. And he looked at it and he said, well, why did you write this in the violins? And I said, I don't know. I thought it sounded good.
Oh yeah.
You know what he said?
What?
He said, don't ever write anything unless you can explain it.
Oh.
And that phrase, I don't even know if he remembers telling me that, but that phrase stuck with me to this day. And what he meant was, he meant you have a theme and you have variations on a theme. Da da
Mm.
da dum, da 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 da, diatonic transfer. To write something with coherence and something memorable, it's theme and development. So, what developmental techniques did you use to create this piece of music? That's what he meant.
Mm. Oh, that's
So every
that's
time I write, I try to think like, okay, this is a inversion, this is an augmentation, a diminution of this and that, and then I can go back and explain what it is. But if you're too literal with those techniques, it becomes predictable, right?
mm.
So you have to use creativity and just the right balance of creativity and technical writing to make, something memorable and interesting at the same time. So yeah,
Man.
these things that people tell me like when I'm a kid or whatever, these different points in my life, is like it stays with me forever. And you can hang your hat on it.
You truly are like an encyclopedia of music. Like I feel like I'm learning so much today.
Oh
It's
no.
nice. It really is a treat, and yeah, just we're just lucky. Yeah, thanks again for you know coming on and hanging out, and
Oh, thank
just
you.
man, it's that's truly cool. And on top of it, we had spoken earlier, and you actually developed the G Kilauea tuning.
Yes. So there's a whole story behind that. I was in a circus. Okay. I was in a circus called Cirque Ingenue. And probably mid 90s, 96 ish,
Okay.
97. And I was playing keyboards in the pit orchestra. And it's like Cirque du Soleil, where people, the Russian acrobats swing from the thing, and then the Polish strongmen would, do all these poses in slow motion. And then the music was by Kitaro. And
Hmm.
I played keyboards in this thing. And I brought a travel guitar with me, thinking, okay, I'm going to write a Slack Key album. Now, this is in the mid 90s. Now, Dancing Cat, that label by George Winston, is a Slack Key label that, he basically, made Slack Key into kind of a world music art form, had his artists performing in performing art centers all over the US. And Slack Key was very popular at the time.
Hmm.
So I was in New York, and my friend Glenn Wu had a bunch of Dancing Cat CDs. Hey, can I borrow these from you? So I borrowed these CDs, and in his liner notes, he's kind of like an ethnomusicologist. He wrote down everybody's tuning. So you probably know, but like Slack Key tunings and things like that were kind of held close to family, like secret kind of.
Hmm.
Hold it close to your chest, share it
Yeah.
well. George Winston kind of brought that all out. So I read about Slack Key, I studied, I looked at all the different tunings, and then, you know, I used what I wanted to accomplish with the guitar, which is to play melody, harmony, inner counterpoint, and bass at the same time. And I thought about, the G, starting from the G Taro Patch tuning, which is an open G chord, right?
Yeah.
And standard tuning, which everyone is familiar with. Well, I wanted to, this is going to be a little bit of an explanation, but like use the guitar like an orchestra, melody, violins, harmony, violas and celli, and bass, and have as many open strings as possible, because the basic principle of a string instrument is utilizing open strings, right?
Hmm.
That's why you play in the key of C on ukulele, and F and A and D and G, because you don't play an A flat
Yeah.
or D flat. You'd finger everything. You'd finger
Yeah.
everything. You shorten the string. You don't have the same kind of sympathetic vibrations of open strings ringing, and Like if you play a low D flat on a cello, well, guess what? You got the other strings like G and D and all those other things ringing by
Mm,
sympathetic vibrations. So orchestras play in certain keys. You play guitar in E and A and D because of the open strings. That's kind of a general principle of stringed instruments. So slack key sounds nahe nahe, sweet and gentle and flowing because it uses a lot of open strings. So you tune it to an open G chord and you play G major. What if you
mm.
want to play G minor? And then I'm looking at analyzing the use of the tuning, and I thought, you know what? Every time you play a four chord in G, right?
Yeah.
C chord, you got to finger it.
Mm,
There's no C. There's no C note in Taro Patch, right?
yeah.
So I see everyone grab their fifth fret. Well, now you've immediately shortened, not only shortened all the strings to the fifth fret, so you have a lot less sustain, you have a darker tone, and depending on the intonation of your guitar, you're probably a little out of tune as well, right?
Yeah.
You've also limited your melodic range and the movement of your fingers to these three frets. What if the melody's on the 12th fret or the 14th fret and you're trying to play the bass note, right? So I'm thinking, okay, I want to tune one of the strings to the four chord because if you think about Western music, what are the most commonly used chords in Western music? Like the one chord. Say we're talking in the key of G. So
Okay.
G obviously is the most frequently used chord. That's your tonic, right?
Yeah.
What would you say would be the next most used chord?
Um, probably the five.
The five chord? Yeah, five
Yeah.
definitely one of them. And then another one. What would you say is the next one?
I mean, I mean, the four.
Yeah, four chord C, right?
Yeah.
G, C, and D. I would guess possibly that the four chord is used even more than the five chord.
Yeah, yeah. It's very common for like a verse too.
Imagine or like 1 4 1 4 1 4 1 4, and then you use five
Five.
to go back to one.
Right, to resolve. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, you're right. The four is very common actually. Like even like when you think of even like Hawaiian music.
Yeah, four.
Yeah.
So now, then I'm thinking, okay, so now I want my bass notes to be the most commonly used chords to be represented as open strings. So I tune my fourth string to C. So taro
Oh,
patch is
okay.
like the sixth string is D, which is the bass note for the five chord. G, your fifth string, one chord, and then I tune my fourth string to C. The reason why I do that is because the interval from the lowest string D to C is a minor seven. That's within an octave. If I did it the other way around and tuned the lowest string down to C and then to G and then up to D, that's a ninth. So a
Hmm.
ninth is outside of an octave and it doesn't sound like the same section. It sounds like it's going into a different register, right?
Right,
You
right.
could compress the 1, 4, and 5 chord into a minor seventh interval by doing it this way. So I tune my fourth string to C.
C.
Now, I kept the top three strings the same because I'm thinking when I play a melody, I don't want to change positions. Da 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 da. I want to do da 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 da. All the same patterns that you would in the melody section. If you have it in taro patch and you tune your top string down to D, you actually have to change positions 2 frets to play a major scale,
Mm. Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
Da 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 da, and then you got to go up a whole step da 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 to play that. So I kept my melody the same as the standard tuning because you can do one position, major, minor scale, anything. You don't have to change your left hand position. Now, but the real gem of the Kilauea tuning is the third string. So remember we talking about having as many open strings as possible?
Yeah.
Well, the third string on a guitar is G.
Okay.
So G is a common tone in the key of G. The
Yeah.
most common tone, I would argue, right? Because G is one in G. It's the five in a C chord, the second most common, and it's the sus on a D chord, but it's the you know having that open string in the middle of the instrument just gives you the glue, the connection
Mm.
between all the different chords, and then you have the melody. You have a lot of open strings, so you can play a lot of things with just a couple of fingers on the Kilauea tuning. And so I came up with this tuning in about 97, wrote a book about it called the G Kilauea tuning, and then I to this day that's what I use for all my finger style playing because it has more open strings than standard tuning. So then the next question you would ask would be something like, well, why wouldn't you just play in the key at A in standard tuning? Because you have the A is the 1,
Mm.
the fourth string is D, which is the 4 in A, and E is the 5. Well, the reason is because the third string is G in standard tuning.
Yeah.
G is not in the key of A. You will
Right.
finger that string all the time. Your common tone was probably E, your highest string, because E is the fifth in the key of A, it's the ninth in the key of D, and it's the root in the 5 chord E. But that's your first string. That's where all your melodies are,
Yeah.
right? So you can't ever, unless you're just chording and not playing melody, you can't use that open string to play melodies.
Mm. So
So
with this tuning you're doing, you can pretty much hit these open voicings almost with almost every chord, or that's in the
yeah,
I guess that's in G, right?
I can show you.
Okay, yeah, that'd
Yeah,
be
let me
great.
just show you. I got my thing right here. Yeah, it's easier to show than to explain, but it really works. So I've been using it for like, gosh, 25 years.
Dang.
Let's see.
Oh, is that your skateboard back there too?
Oh yeah, that is my uke board. Wait. Well, I guess it's kind of in tune.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not really in tune, but so this is my D, 6 string, 5 chord, G, 1, and C, 4 chord, and then G like a guitar, like that.
Wow.
So, oh, you know what? I want to make this sound good for you. 1 second. Okay. I just want to make sure it's in tune because it just sounds that you can hear the consonants a lot better.
Oh no, of course, yeah. Yeah, tuning is like priority number one, everybody.
So this instrument is based on the tiny tenor design, and as you can see, for a small bodied guitar, it doesn't have that overabundance of mid-range.
Yeah.
It just has a nice even. Okay, so watch how this works. So this is my 1 chord, fifth string. Here's my 4 chord, bass note, still open string, haven't used this hand. My 5 chord, D. This common tone here on the third string, I can play a 1 chord, I can play a 4 chord, C and G, right? And then my 5 chord, it's a sus. So now when I play a melody, I can play G. Here's my melody notes. It's all the same, so here's my G. Here's my 4 chord. And 5. So
Wow.
I don't have to do too much, but check this out. Here's my minor chords, right? So 2 chord, 3 chord, 5, 6. And this is such a key factor because if you listen to all these chords, so this is Pomaikai, right? You hear how that middle G string rings and connects all the chords as I transition?
Yeah.
Or all these chromatic chords. So all the chromatic lines. So then we were talking about counterpoint earlier in the conversation. That's the dissonance and consonance, right? And then so you can hear how,
Dang.
like the dissonance and the consonant, but you can get through all the different chords and have all these open strings, and I never bar anything.
I was gonna
Nothing is
say,
barred. There's always an open string in some kind of voicing. Like this, you're talking about Leah, right?
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that right there. Remember we talked about the G over C? This is D over G. Same thing.
Oh, okay.
D over G. This is a D
Oh,
chord. Then C add 9. D over G.
dang, that's so beautiful.
So, and you can hear how the instrument doesn't have that mid-range. This is a baritone size instrument, right? But it's a
Yeah.
21-inch scale, so baritone is like this. But it fits in a baritone case because we keep it compact. But you hear the absence of mid-range, like the balance of the
Yeah.
body, like this. So it doesn't sound small. Like this is tuned lower than a guitar. This is D. It's a whole step lower than a guitar. And G is a whole step, the bass note, and C is lower too.
Mm.
But it's so easy to play because it's 21-inch scale. And that's why I wish I had this guitar like 20 years ago because it's so easy to tour. You can just put it in the overhead.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah.
But you don't compromise the sound. It doesn't sound like a small body,
Yeah, it has a monstrous sound, and man, those open voicings, my gosh, it's like
Yeah.
you can get these incredible, beautiful voicings. It's
Yes. So, and this all comes, from the analysis of number one, string instruments and using open strings, taking advantage of open strings so your hands can cover melody, harmony, and rhythm, counterpoint, and all that stuff. If you're fingering everything and grabbing like this, every time you lift your finger up, the note stops, right? Whereas open
yeah.
strings, they just keep going. They glue everything together, and that's nahe nahe with counterpoint and
Mm.
consonance and dissonance and jazz chords and classical melodies and things like that. So um, going back to an artist and uniqueness, you can't play those voicings unless you use that tuning. It doesn't work.
Yeah. Wow. And have you ever tried that tuning on ukulele or something similar to that? I know we're missing two strings here, but
Um, it you can just tune the G string down to F, and that would be the low G. Your low G, tune it down to
yeah,
F.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically the same thing. But you
Okay.
really kind of need the six strings to take advantage of the concept as a whole. Because
Right.
you need the 1 4 and the 5, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
1 4 and the 5 is bass notes because that's most of Western music.
That was that's such a genius idea too. It's just like everything is in the open. You just gotta pluck a certain string, and you're free to like yeah, you're free. You don't have to hold these crazy bar chords or it's like you seem just so free. You could move, just
Yep.
navigating with the chords you're playing, and it's just dang, that's like that's
And
incredible.
if you play solo, you want to play bass for yourself, melody,
Yeah.
counterpoint, and harmony at the same time. So you can do like the bass note, like the pop song stuff, like um, you can do like more rhythmic things like that with it, and have all the different parts working together while you to accompany yourself singing, or because a lot of times I have to play solo and I don't have. And then when I write the bass parts, I write them out so they're lined up exactly with the bass notes I play on the guitar.
Yeah.
So everything fits. I don't have to. I don't want to change what I do if I have a bass player or not.
Right,
Just do
right.
it the same way because I'm used to doing it that way. And then yeah. So, but
Hey.
yeah, I mean, you see how you can put all the pieces together, and then you create your own unique voice
Mm.
as Andrew Molina, the artist. This is how he tunes his ukulele. This is the kind of ukulele he plays. This is the kind of music he writes. These are his influence, and it would be just things that you love the most, and you kind of put them together, and you pull from here, pull from there, and
Yeah, it just makes me want to kind of experiment with like an open tuning because I do like those open, just those voicings when you get with like like your tuning and I don't know, just like I did some experimenting on the latest record. I think I tuned the G and the C a full step and then the E and the A two steps down, kind of
you
like
tune the G and the C.
I think I tuned it one step down and then I
Uh-huh.
tuned E and A two steps down. So
Oh, okay.
I think that's like a dad gad equivalent on ukulele. I think.
I see. I see. G.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's
Okay. Yeah.
but
Oh,
like
that's
your
nice.
yeah, no, it is interesting and it's like your roadmap is completely different, but just the voicings, it just I was very fascinated with that. So just like yeah, now I'm just curious, like what else can I have so many ukuleles, I can tune them to a different tuning and just experiment. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
guess the closest thing would be what just open C or
An open C chord. Yeah, I think that would be.
what about low G? Same thing or
Uh, yeah. Okay. My thing about you know changing tuning on an ukulele, I I usually tour with the steel string version of that instrument because I play in standard tuning and G Kilauea in a
mm-mm.
show. You cannot tune nylon strings in a show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So this the first ukulele song I wrote was called Haiku, and solo ukulele piece, and I tuned you know the ukulele differently. I tuned the C to a D, and I tried to do it, but within a minute it's out of tune.
Mm,
So you can never tune a nylon string, and you'd have to have a different instrument to do
that's
that.
true.
So I never tune my I use my ukulele in standard tuning because of that. It's just the strings.
Yeah.
But guitar, I take the steel, even though I like the sound of nylon, because the
Mm.
nylon sound is warm and full in classical guitar and all that. But I cannot ever bring two instruments and an ukulele. Yeah.
So what do you usually when you're traveling? What like you take that guitar you were just playing,
Yep.
the
The
small
steel
one?
string version. Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay,
looks
okay.
exactly like that. I take that, and Lydia carries my spouted mango tiny tenor.
Okay, so it's just two instruments?
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, at least that's easy to
And they're
travel with.
compact because the tiny tenor is a concert, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'd stick them under the seat, and then I can
Oh,
play it. The 2 inches shorter makes a difference because if you sit in a seat and you play your tenor, you got to turn sideways.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like if you're in the car, you kind of got to turn sideways or go up like this. But the tiny tenor is only 23 inches long. You can just play it. So I practice on the plane or in the car, or it's easy to play. And then, we don't have any problems getting these on an airplane. The baritone ukulele size.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was, a dream, really a dream come true for a traveling musician because that fight with the guitar going under the plane, oh man, cannot handle
Yeah.
the stress.
Yeah, I just remember
Yeah,
there's been so much guitars that's been bust up, or I mean, even ukulele. So
I
like,
know.
even like, and some planes have the small overhead, right? So like, a couple times I carry a double fusion bag with my two ukuleles, and
Mhm.
a couple times they're like, oh, that we have to fit in the closet if there's room, and I'm thinking there's no way that thing's gonna go down into like the baggage area because it might, just like really expensive instruments too, and it's just like
Yeah.
we gotta hope there's room up above or there's room in the closet because I don't know, it's taking a gamble. So
Does the
yeah, I don't know.
fusion bag, does it have a hard um core, or is it just padded?
It's just padded. I mean, I've
Oh.
seen one double case where it's just really big though, and but it's hard. It's a hard case, so I guess it's more protective. but it's just like double the size. It comes in, it's kind of like a briefcase, I think.
Oh, right, right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good bag, but it's just yeah. I mean, I think if someone just fell on it, you might have some trouble with your instrument after or something. It's
Yeah, yeah. Soft cases, yeah.
yeah.
I
What
try
kind
to
of
move it
case?
to soft, access
Hmm.
case too, but
Well, as long as you can keep an eye on it, I think that's the main thing. Since
yeah,
yeah, and make
yeah.
sure that I don't know, someone like yours is on the outer layer, so someone doesn't like shove a suitcase up there and smash it or something.
Oh, I know, I know. Well, I hope hopefully we'll be able to tour again.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking forward to
Actually pull
that.
the case out of the closet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can't wait to just start traveling again and seeing everybody jamming. Just a
Yeah.
process. But hey, man, thank you so much for joining today. Check out the Tiny Tenor and Daniel's. He has so many CDs. Check them out. Yeah, what's your website? Is it DanielHo.com?
DanielHo.com.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. And
Yeah.
yeah, check him out. He's a fantastic musician and the nicest guy ever.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on your show and allowing me to share and talk about my passions and
Oh,
crazy.
that was true. That was definitely a treat, and it was unexpected. I mean, I got to learn a lot today. So, thanks, man.
My pleasure.
All right,
Yeah.
Daniel. Take care,
Thank
man.
you. Okay. Aloha.
Aloha.